Let me just ask you something. How many of these men who were saying you can't elect her because she's a black woman were saying, who cares that Graham Plattner has a goddamn Nazi tattoo on his chest?
All of them.
It was a
All of
dumb, drunken mistake. He's just with his buddies. Who cares?
The other thing, too, is a lot of these men thought it was the funniest thing when Jasmine Crockett made the Governor Hot Wheels comment. And all of a sudden, she thinks that she can do better things in a different level of office. Oh, well, not anymore. She can't do that. That's too much. She's not ready for that. No.
Welcome back to another episode of Concepts of a Pod, and as we are recording this, the days are counting down until Congress leaves for their holiday break without any concepts of a plan to fix the rising healthcare costs that will come when Obamacare subsidies expire at the end of the year, despite Trump promising he had concepts of a plan. What was that, over a year ago now? Didn't happen, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Of course not.
we have a whole podcast now, Concepts of a Pod, based on that line, and they can't even deliver their concepts of a plan to fix healthcare that this country elected him president for. What are we doing?
Absolutely horrific.
I don't know. I think we all need to be a lot better at understanding how exactly the Republicans have been operating, because even a year into this, it still kind of feels like we're nowhere, but so are they, I guess.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to feel like we're going nowhere because we're going backwards and nowhere at the same time. There's no progress going forward.
It sucks because these are real people, real Americans' lives. Like, people are getting sick every single day. You don't just not get cancer because you don't have health insurance. And I think even in Western Washington this past week, they had some really bad flooding. And there was this one family, they moved into a portable mobile home very recently because the wife had gotten diagnosed with cancer. And now that mobile home has been completely put underwater from all of the storming and the rivers rising. And those are the Americans that these Republicans are screwing over every single day when they don't try and actually do something worthwhile and effective and actually legislate.
No, literally. And
Yeah.
then there's also hundreds of thousands of Americans like me who will be turning 26 next year. And under Obamacare, when you turn 26, you are no longer eligible to be under your parents' health insurance. So I'm someone who's going to be dealing with that. And I know there's hundreds of thousands of other people who are also going to be turning 26 next year and are going to have to figure out how they're going to, just navigate the healthcare system, and B, afford it. And with all of these Obamacare subsidies that are no longer going to be carried over into the next year, I was hoping my health insurance would be at the cheapest $450 a month. And now it's looking like my health insurance each month is going to be $700 a month. That's something I can't afford. Yeah, I'm in a much better situation than many people are. Like you just mentioned, Simone, in Western Washington, the woman who just lost her home to all of the flooding and she has cancer. But there's also so many regular people like me who aren't going to be able to afford health insurance like that. What do I do? Do I have to pick up another job to be able to afford health insurance? Or do I just go without health insurance? What am I going to do? There's hundreds of thousands, millions and millions of people who are going to be dealing with this next year. And it's really fucking shitty. That's the only way to put it. And it's going to kill people. It is going to devastate families. We are going to see people go to the doctor significantly less. We're going to see more people die from basic things that could be treated, like certain illnesses. And just if you break your arm, there's things you can get, like an infection. If someone gets a scrape on their knee and it starts to get infected, they don't have health insurance, they're not going to go to the doctor, they get sepsis and die. We're going to see a lot of that. And I know that may seem like overreacting or really gruesome to some people, but that's what happens in third world countries that don't have modern healthcare or affordable healthcare. And we are a first world country. We are a superpower country, and we are about to see probably thousands of Americans die each year from totally preventable, treatable things if healthcare was affordable.
Yeah. And there is, even as I can't believe there's more to say on this other than how despicably disgusting it is, but there's actually a deeper element to at least I think, why a superpower like America would allow it to operate this way. And we all understand this, I think, more than most people, as we are setting out on our own to reshape the political ecosystem and devoting most of our time to that. I mean, we all basically get by on freelance contracts as political consultants, and health insurance is insanely expensive for all of us. And I mean, I'm lucky enough that I'm married and my wife has a corporate job. But point is that these corporate jobs are the best way for people to get health care. And that's stopping people from being entrepreneurial and shaking up the system. And you don't think the corporate lobbyists like that? You don't think those billionaires who are simultaneously providing your health care and raising your prices and keeping you locked in this doom loop economy that we're in? There's a reason for that.
I've been thinking a lot recently about the word freedom and what that means in the context of right now. That's something that's been on my mind a lot recently. And we have the illusion of freedom at this point in the United States.
Yes.
Just like you explained, the only way to get good health insurance is to go into a corporate job where you have to, just like everyone else, do what the big man says and add to the problems of the world.
And more than that, be afraid that if you speak out about what's going on in the world, that they might fire you and take away everything you have. Isn't that just as bad as being incarcerated for what you're saying? If you're incarcerated, at least you have health care. No, I'm sorry, that's not funny.
No, it's true. It's true.
It's not funny, though.
It's not. No, but that's true. You know, we can talk about the justice system and the incarceration system another time, but it's true. You at least have basic health care, very, very, very basic health care when you are incarcerated. You also have a job while you're incarcerated. Again, you're getting paid 10 cents an hour. Very different things, but that's an actually really interesting comparison, which is really disappointing to say.
Yeah.
Really
Didn't somebody rob a bank for $1 once because he had a tumor that he needed removed and couldn't afford it? I thought I saw that story somewhere. It was years ago.
I haven't seen that story, but it's really sad. I worked at a grocery store for a very short period of time, and I was an overnight stalker, and I would be there just before, about an hour or so before the store would close, and I would be there about 2 hours after the store would open in the morning. And every once in a while, I would see, or like even some of the people who worked there, if I saw them put a loaf of bread under their coat, put some can of something in their pocket, I wasn't going to say anything. Like, if they felt the need that they needed to take that, why would I say something? Like, and it's sad. There's probably plenty of people who are going to be like, that's stealing. Why would you do that? If you wanted to steal something, why wouldn't you go like you said, rob a bank or go rob a luxury store? They're stealing a can of corn or half of a loaf of bread that was going to expire the next day at the store anyways that they were going to have to throw out. Why am I going to say something when they need that more than me?
And one point I really want to go back to regarding what Jordan said about how like everything's kind of been consultant work or campaign contracts. And Shayna, you talked about how you're about to be 26. And I think all three of us can kind of relate to the fact that right after we kind of graduated and we started our careers and whatnot, we have the privilege of being, because of Obamacare, on our parents' insurance for several years after the fact, or right as we go into college or after post 18, we, because of Obamacare, had that privilege. So for me, it was easier to go from campaign job to campaign job. I'd have like 3 months in between. I would try to like save up so I could survive through that. But I didn't have to worry on top of that about my insurance. And then by the time I turned 26, I had gotten more of a stable kind of job within my career path. But at the same time, like just imagine before Obamacare and when you turn 18 and then you were shit out of luck, that takes a lot of people out of the talent pool for progressive organizing, because it's already hard to get involved in politics on a career level. There are some barriers, whether it's your socioeconomic background, where you're located, etc. But then on top of that, you can't take gigs like that if you don't have health insurance or you have no guarantee. If you're disabled or if you have ADHD like I do, how are you going to get your Adderall to be able to work 60 hours a week during GOTV if you don't have insurance? So that saved me for about 4 years. And that's 4 years of my life that I dedicated specifically to progressive organizing that would not have happened if Obamacare wasn't there for me. So that's a really important perspective to think about as well, how it affects are based as the Democratic Party as a whole, not just as everyday Americans, but as our staff members and our organizers and the people that are doing the work and connecting with communities, which is more important than ever right now. So another thing to think about.
It's
Wow.
also, from the employer's side, it's also so expensive to be able to provide healthcare for your campaign workers, which is not necessarily some of the campaign's fault. Some of them it is because they have a lot of money. All the donations they get, and hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever. They could pay for that. But from some of those campaign employers' perspectives, especially if you're on some of the larger races, like in 2020, we had the 3 most expensive races of all time, which was Steve Bullock in Montana, Cal Cunningham in North Carolina, and then Warnock and Ossoff in Georgia. I know that, I'm not going to name who, but I know that in a lot of those campaigns, or the little organizations that were helping out those campaign stuff, they had enough money to pay for health insurance for their campaign workers, and they didn't. But now it's become even more expensive for employers to provide that for their people. So most of my work, and I've mentioned this before, you can go look up my salary just about anywhere because I live in Illinois, and all that's public information when you work on a campaign. But I'm a contract worker. I'm 1099 for almost every single one of my campaigns, because then campaigns don't have to hire a lawyer, a compliance team, compliance software to be able to offer like a W-2 and health insurance. It's ridiculous. It's sometimes it's their fault, sometimes it's not, but it's also, the healthcare system is absolutely disgusting here.
Yes.
I
It's
think
a
we can.
broken
I think that's a
system.
good way to wrap that up, put it in a nutshell. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a broken system, and it actually, I know correlation is not causation, and we know better than that. But the more we talk about this, it actually does make me think, since Obamacare was passed, how many more young people have gotten into political activism. And it makes me wonder, and I think it's worth studying and really considering, and to any political science professors who may be watching this, would love to see a paper on the correlation between the passage of the Affordable Care Act and the increase in young activism. But I think we do see why the old farts in Congress have no incentive to get this done, especially as young activists want to see more and more of those older leaders replaced these days. And I think that takes us into one of the more high-profile Democratic primaries for a Republican seat in Texas that is really begging a lot of questions about the future direction of the Democratic Party. And I know everyone's had their takes. We waited until a couple of days after the big announcement that Jasmine Crockett was entering this race because we knew people were going to say some shit, and we wanted to let it marinate, and really glad we did. But what are your guys' first impressions to all of the takes on Twitter we've seen since Jasmine Crockett announced her run?
The very first thing that I want to say, and this was my very first statement that I put out online about all of this, is that I have a platform. It's not the largest, but I have a platform, and we have a platform here, and we are 3 young white activists. It's important that we are going to talk about this and make sure that if you have criticisms of Jasmine Crockett that are about her policy, her work ethic, her views, her morals, that's fine. Those
or even her
can be
rhetorical
valid.
style.
The thing that's not okay is if you say you don't like Jasmine Crockett running and your only answer is racism or misogyny. That's not okay. I want to put that out there first for everyone. I think that's really, really important when we talk about this and we have this conversation, because at first when we saw this was going to be announced, we were like, what should we say? And I was like, let's wait a moment and see what happens online.
Yeah.
And I decided to get in Twitter fights with quite a few people, and I was like, why don't you like Jasmine Crockett? And a lot of the answers were, well, she just wants power. I'm like, you don't like it because it's a Black woman who wants to have power. What's wrong with that? And people would come back and they would get all flustered, or they wouldn't know what to say. They had nothing to say on why they didn't like her, except for that she's a powerful Black woman. That's not okay. We shouldn't be having this type of racism and misogyny in today's world.
Especially in a Democratic primary.
Yeah, especially in a Democratic primary. But I wanted to make sure that we made a note, as we are well aware as 3 young white activists, how important it is that we treat both of these candidates with respect. Even James Talarico, he sent out a video to all of his supporters saying, let's be nice to Jasmine. She deserves to be in this race just as much as we do. But it's really sad that he had to tell his people that.
Yeah, that being said, that video was great, and I think actually worth playing real quickly for you all here.
Hey, Team Talarico, I just wanted to hop on here and record a quick video for y'all. Lots of news in the race today. On behalf of all of us, I want to welcome Congresswoman Crockett into the Democratic primary race. I chose to run for the honor of being your next U.S. Senator because working people deserve someone who knows how to fight and knows how to win in Washington. We always knew this was going to be hard, and I am so proud of what we've built so far. We've shattered grassroots fundraising numbers. We've built an infrastructure of 10,000 volunteers just like all of you who are already putting in the work to win in November. I am so proud of the community and the culture we've built here at Team Talarico. We have always maintained that we are pro our campaign, not anti anyone else's. We will make the case for why we are best positioned to win this race in November and take power back for working people. But we will always treat Congresswoman Crockett with the utmost respect. She is my colleague and she is a leader in our state. She deserves nothing less. So now is the time. Please sign up to phone bank, send texts, learn how to host block walks. Let's go win this thing. Thank y'all.
Yeah, great message. Really glad he was quick with it as well. You can tell that was just a quick face to cam that they did, but I'm glad they did it. I haven't really been on social very much in the past month. I have death in the family, but I've been slowly kind of crawling my way back. And this kind of happened to align with Jasmine Crockett's announcement. And the first thing I noticed, which Shayna's already mentioned, but it was the misogyny. Shayna, I was so glad when you texted in our group chat too, like, look at all this misogyny, because sometimes I have to really be like, okay, am I just reading into this? You can't always tell tone with some people's tweets, but when it's a lot of the same quote unquote politicos or pundits or anything like that, and they're almost always men or they identify as men.
White men too.
Typically does.
White men.
It's a couple of the same ones, and these are folks with like tens of thousands of followers as well. And it's just very interesting because it's not necessarily like they are being very explicitly misogynistic. It's not like they're catcalling her on the internet or anything like that. But there are certain reactions in the way you react to women using their voice, to announcing their campaign, to making decisions, when at the end of the day, they were treating her like this was like backstabbing and that like it came out of nowhere, when truly, for me, as somebody who is not a Texan, I've been to Texas a couple times. I mean, I grew up in the Southwest in Arizona, but I'm not a Texan. And my external view of this from a national standpoint is that's just more money going into field programs in Texas, and they desperately need it. Like, instead of just one or two campaigns, there's going to be multiple campaigns in these primaries, multiple Democrats who are going to tackle this massive state and send door knockers who, sure, they're for two different candidates, but they are along the same line of anti-fascism. They are along the same line of being in the future. And another thing is people are just being hypocritical. There is a lot of, why are they running? Why are they announcing this? Every single day, people are like, we need more young people. We need new flesh. Like, we need new blood. We need new people. Like, even my dad, who's a Republican, is like, who is the Democratic Party's like main leaders who are under the age of 70? And I'm like,
we don't know.
Bro, we don't know. So I am not opposed to that money going into campaigns in Texas for that situation. If it was a presidential race or anything, like, I find that different. But when you're looking at these state level races, it's incredibly important. I mean, technically it's a federal level race, but you're going across the state, and all of that money is going to more doors knocked, more literature, more awareness at a time where there are going to be a lot of Texans who will want to vote Democrat or blue next year. And so it makes the misogyny so much more stark, knowing that as well, and having that knowledge that people are so upset by Crockett entering this race. And it definitely comes from a place of racism and misogyny, and it's exhausting. And I want you to know, like, if you're listening and maybe you don't identify as a woman, or maybe you don't have a lot of close female friends or anything like that, totally fine. But we can always tell when you are talking about these leaders, there are not a lot of women who run for office in this country. And it is also a fairly relatively new concept for women to even hold office in this country. Be cognizant of how you're saying things and how you are reacting, especially especially when it's a primary. The whole point is to have multiple people and to make our voices heard. So those are my main thoughts on the situation as a whole. But thank God he sent out that video because it tempered it down a little bit.
I'm very glad that he decided to send out that video. Some of the ways where some people were telling me, oh, why'd you reply under this tweet that it was misogynistic and racist? There wasn't anything in it. A few of the subtle ways that people can be misogynistic is that they're calling her Jasmine, but they're calling James Talarico. They're just using his last name. So it's Jasmine versus Talarico, or Jasmine Crockett versus Talarico. That is, some people may argue, like, that's not misogyny. Why are you calling a man by his last name, but why can't you call the woman by her last name? That's it's I don't know. It's one of those things where it's subtle, but you're showing that they're not equals because you're not using the same way to describe them. And I know that if there was a man who had entered this race, they wouldn't have said any of these things. A lot of people did not like Jasmine Crockett's announcement video where she was standing there in a strong pose while Donald Trump was saying all this nasty shit about her. She didn't have to say a word. Everything else spoke for her. People were mad about that. If a man had done that, everyone would have said, oh my gosh, this is genius. He's using someone else's voice to speak for him. That's what she did. And people are just upset about the fact that it's a Black woman. And as you mentioned, Simone, it's a fairly new concept for women to hold office and run for office in this country. It's an even newer concept for women of color to be able to do that and to get them elected. I think there's been less than 15 women of color elected in the country. There should be so many more. And I want to make it clear too, while we're talking about this is not an endorsement of Jasmine Crockett or of James Talarico. We're just making sure that, like, as I said on Twitter, make sure you check yourself, and otherwise I'm going to put you in your place to make sure you understand why you really do or don't like Jasmine Crockett. It's fine if you don't like her, but it's not fine if you don't like her because of the way she looks or because of who she is and what her identity is. It's the same way with, and if that's something that's hard for you to understand, let me put it in a slightly simpler way. It's fine if you don't like Taylor Swift and her music. It's fine if it's not your style. I'm serious. It's fine if it's not your style, but there's no reason to be misogynistic about her and say, oh, I don't like her music because she only talks about boys and her love life. Okay, so does every other person on the planet. Why is it only a problem when she does it? Oh, it's because she's a powerful woman. So if you needed that comparison, there you go. But yeah, it's okay if you don't like Jasmine Crockett. It's not okay if you don't like her because you are racist and misogynistic.
Yeah, and let me just ask you something. How many of these men you both were referencing on Twitter who were going after her and saying you can't elect her because she's a Black woman or any of these subtle things were saying that who cares that Graham Plattner has a goddamn Nazi tattoo on his chest?
All of them.
It was a dumb, drunken mistake when he was a soldier in Croatia. He's just with his buddies. Who cares?
The other thing too is I went back and I looked through a lot of these pages, and a lot of these men who were posting this, they were all over it. That was the funniest thing when Jasmine Crockett made the Governor Hot Wheels comment when she had all these quips and stuff. They thought that it was the funniest thing. She's so strong. But all of a sudden, oh, she thinks that she can do better things in a different level of office. Oh, well, not anymore. She can't do that. That's too much. She's not ready for that. No. Cut the bullshit. You're mad that a strong, powerful Black woman wants to run. She has a voice. She's using her voice, and she's not afraid of you. But Nazi tattoos are okay.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And I'm glad you said that, Jordan, and you made that comparison because, first of all, excellent example to bring up at this point. And also looking back at the way these same folks, these same pundits speak about Kamala post-election and the way they kind of have this revisionist idea of how the campaign last year was always going to fail because of her and blah, 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 and how they never talk about her in discussions about her being one of the top contenders for 2028 because they always discredit Black voters and they are never ready to support either a woman or a Black woman for these higher roles in leadership positions that honestly, both of these women that we're speaking of have worked their asses off for. They are incredible leaders. They are strong communicators. You can make the argument about who they're communicating to. They are probably better at communicating with different subsects of people than every American known to man. I mean, God forbid, nobody right now can speak to every single American in one moment. I mean, Taylor Swift can't even do it. Like, let's be real. But it just comes to show that if you're starting to see a pattern of the way these political pundits or these folks that you follow online, if you're starting to see, ooh, they tend to speak poorly about these female candidates way more often and they make more excuses for the white male candidates, maybe that's somebody that we shouldn't be following. You really need to focus on, in this day and age with all of the other slop, you just kind of have to be aware of, okay, should I be following this person or should I just mute them? I use the mute buttons like nobody's business, because the
All the
more
time.
you read that information, that is changing who you are as a human being. We see that across the way. And it's not to say that you need to only ingest content that you relate to or you agree with, but you need to be cognizant that if you are just blindly trusting every blue check mark on any website, you're going to fall into not being able to identify when something is just kind of a rage bait for just the fact that that woman is a woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the other thing I wanna like plug in here too, because I know that we've talked a lot about these like white male influencers online. I'm also gonna call out the white women here, in that I've seen not quite as much, but it comes up a lot with both, you know, men and women influencers online. But when you hear them talk about Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign versus Kamala Harris's campaign, it was, oh well, Hillary won the popular vote. These are the things we could have. She was so close to winning. If she just done this a little bit better, it's a lot gentler. And it was, oh, Kamala didn't do this right. She wasn't successful enough. She didn't go do that. She was bad at this. It was like Kamala Harris, like her campaign and what she actually did, going out to talk to people on the ground, was a lot better and came a lot closer to what everyone thought Hillary's campaign actually was. If we're talking about electoral votes and popular vote, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the actual work on both of the campaigns on the ground. Kamala Harris's campaign was 100 times more in-depth and complex. They were everywhere. They had $1.1 billion to spend for that campaign. That's how much money they raised. I don't know how much money Hillary had for her campaign, but I can tell you it was not that much.
And neither did Joe.
Nowhere near that much. And so I want to make sure that you don't have to comment on everything, get in Facebook or Twitter fights. I don't normally endorse that.
Also,
unless you're really bored one day, but make
Twitter's
sure
not real
that
life.
it's not real life, no, but while you're sitting there, while you're looking through and you're consuming all of this content, if you see something that like you're unsure of whether it's inappropriate or not, or bigoted or not, if you have that unsure moment, A, it's probably bigoted. B, make sure that you take a moment to think about why you feel uncomfortable reading it and why you think it's bigoted, and either make a comment or mute it, or make sure you know that you remember, oh, I saw this didn't feel right. What can I do in my everyday life to combat these, sometimes micro and macro aggressions, but how can I do micro things to help combat all of this bigotry? It's really important that, in helping deconstruct your mind, and that's just also comprehension, like very basic reading comprehension, which we've unfortunately lost a lot of that. Thank you, Education Department, which also got rid of the SAVE program.
Yeah, thanks,
but
Linda
anyways,
McMahon.
RIP the Department of Education. But no, make sure while you are consuming things, and you don't have to do it for everything you read, otherwise you're going to drive yourself crazy. But when you're on, on Twitter or Facebook and you're reading about politics, make sure you take a moment to really understand what you're actually reading and see if you're being biased or not. It will help you so much in the long run, and it's also going to open up your brain so much and see just how screwed up the rest of the world is, and how much bigotry and misogyny that there is in your daily life that you may not have noticed before.
One other thing about all those people commenting on all this stuff, a lot of them aren't from Texas, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's why when I saw these bad takes the day Crockett launched, we had this conversation and we decided we weren't going to say anything. What we did right away was poll our Texas-based supporters, and we were able to use our technology to ask only Democratic donors who are based in Texas who they wanted to be the nominee. And we got 182 total responses from Texas, 85 of whom were for Crockett, 74 for Talarico, and 23 not sure. So that is almost an even split.
Yeah.
And what was more interesting, though, was there was a section where people could add their own comments on what they thought, as we do with many of these focus groups. And unlike on Twitter, I don't think I saw one bad thing said about either of them. And I mean, people said things about who they thought was more electable. People worried. And the one person who, it's right on the line of, someone said they were genuinely worried whether a black woman could get elected in Texas. And I don't know if that's more a comment on their own beliefs or their beliefs about the beliefs of the state, which I can understand, I guess.
It's also different because it came from someone who's actually living and voting in Texas versus some white guy living in D.C. making a comment.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't have racial data on our focus group because it's all pretty anonymous, but I just want to read a couple of the comments that stuck out to me just to give us some of the positivity we all need. Someone said, we need them both. They need to be running for different seats, which I wish that were possible. Someone else said, Democrats should be working as a team. Whatever will strengthen the Democratic Party and our chances to win across the country is the right thing to do. And I think that really goes back to the comment, I think, Simone, you made about the field programs and how I have to imagine the way it looks like Talarico and Crockett are running this. Whoever doesn't win is gonna fight like hell to get the other one elected.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Doesn't seem like Bernie and Hillary here.
Which
I
again,
will
is
never
like-
forgive Bernie Sanders. We can't get into that right now.
Yeah. Then somebody else said, I really like Jasmine Crockett too, but I think that Talarico has a better chance of winning. And then somebody else went more specifically into the race and gender stuff that I won't read that out loud on here. I think we get the gist. But I think perhaps my favorite comment that I really wish would have been possible, and curious what's going to happen here, and in a world where Talarico wins this primary, maybe this is the solution that's best for everyone. Crockett needs to stay in her seat until 2028 to end Cruz.
I'd love to see Jasmine Crockett beat the shit out of Ted Cruz.
And that could be part of an internal plan. I think
Right?
everyone sees folks' decisions at face value, but there's a lot of strategy that goes behind them. She's going to need name recognition to beat Ted Cruz. Might as well start right now. And so even if that is her plan, but I also do believe she wants to fight for Texans and be a representative for Texans in a different way in the Senate. But her end goal could be, okay, well, if I'm not going to win this one, if the polls show me just kind of trailing, let's bring in the money, get that name recognition, and then try again. I mean, I've worked for candidates 5 years ago who are now whispering about 2028, but they were whispering about 2028 at their campaign launch for their first statewide campaign. Those are things that people are thinking of constantly. So to the person that sent that comment, I wouldn't be too worried yet. We'll see how it plays out. And there's always a chance to end Ted Cruz. It's just a matter of when.
And I think what this race really comes down to, if you strip out the internet's racism and sexism, is how we as Democrats want to fight back in the toughest of fights. And here we have two candidates who really, both of them are fighters. You've got Jasmine Crockett, needs no introduction. And then you've got James Talarico, who, as a state representative, has really come up with novel ways to build coalition around fighting back. You saw it when they broke quorum and we had his colleague, Representative Rafael Anchia, come on and talk about those efforts that I think Talarico was really at the forefront of leading there. And it's just, he has a different style of fighting back. And I think for the voters of Texas, not the internet pundits, this is really going to come down to how we want to fight back. And I think for all of us to break down this so closely contested primary among our supporters, I think what we should do is show you all both candidates' launch videos and kind of get our own feeling for who these candidates are portraying themselves to be and how they put themselves forward instead of what everyone else says on their behalf. So we're going to start with Talarico, who was first into the race.
The biggest divide in our country is not left versus right. It's top versus bottom. Billionaires want us looking left and right at each other so that we're not looking up at them. The people at the top work so hard to keep us angry and divided because our unity is a threat to their wealth and their power. So their social media algorithms and their cable news networks tear us apart. They divide us by party, by race, by gender, by religion, so that we don't notice that they're defunding our schools, gutting our health care, and cutting taxes for themselves and their rich friends. It is the oldest strategy in the world: divide and conquer. But we will not be conquered.
It's a wonderful launch video. He's very clear about what is wrong and what we need to do. He's like, people are trying to divide us and we're not going to be conquered. Those are incredibly powerful words. Words are really, really powerful, but sometimes actions and silence are more powerful than words too.
Yeah. And with that, we will show you the video we previewed previously that Jasmine Crockett released for her launch.
She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett. They're in big trouble.
But you have this woman, Crockett. She's a very low IQ person.
I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. Crockett. Oh, man, oh, man. She's a very low IQ person.
Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding.
Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
I love it. That one gives me chills too. It's also, and maybe it's because I'm a woman and I see myself in her, but I feel like both of those videos serve their own purposes. And I know there's been a lot of comparison that hers was all about herself, but also this is just one, start of her campaign, and two, it's not just about herself, because there are people in Texas who can see themselves in that video as well, the same way I did. And I don't have much in common with her at all. And so, man, I have goosebumps.
I know.
Yeah. I got into an argument on Twitter with someone about this, about how representation matters. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. You will lose more elections than win. That doesn't mean Jasmine Crockett's going to lose. Doesn't mean she's going to win. Doesn't mean she's going to go anywhere if she loses or if she wins. But it's really important for people to have someone who they can see themselves in. And in my lifetime, since I've grown up, Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris were two of the people that I looked up to because I was like, oh, wow, a woman can run for president. A woman could be president. And something that I really appreciated with Jasmine Crockett's video is that she showed that she was a strong woman. Those words didn't bother her. And something, too, that I saw some misogyny about that I really appreciated. Jasmine Crockett, she put on makeup. She put on big false lashes. She was wearing big sparkly jewelry. She had her hair done. You can be pretty and do politics too. That is something that people will discount women for. And like,
And they have. They've done
and
it
they
to
have.
me.
And on the opposite though, if you don't wear makeup, when you show up to events, things like that, people are like, oh, well, you got to be pretty for people to talk to you. Nothing's ever good enough when you're a woman. And it's like, that's something I really appreciate. I love, like sparkles and looking nice and getting to dress up. But for a long time in my job, I wouldn't do that because people were going to discount me if I showed up in something glittery or I had makeup on when I went to talk about healthcare and, making sure that abortion was still legal. There were several times that these comments, they're going to bother me for the rest of my life. People would tell me, you're too pretty to be in politics. But on the opposite, when I was in a tank top and shorts, and it was 90 degrees outside, no makeup on, my hair up, they're like, oh, you should look prettier if you're going to go talk to people about politics. I'm like, what? What do you mean? So it's, even though I don't have very much in common with Jasmine Crockett, she didn't say anything, but she said everything all at once. You can be a strong, powerful woman. You can wear jewelry. You can have your makeup done. You can have your hair done, and you can still get shit done and be reliable and someone that people look up to. That's something that I know too, that in Black culture, it's really important for women to get all dolled up and they want to be eccentric and wear whatever they want. Everyone should be able to do that. But I know that's really big in Black culture, and especially, when you get to Texas, everything's bigger in Texas. And I think it's really important that she is representing that and that she's not afraid to show that. And she's showing people you can do whatever you want and look however you want.
Yeah.
That's really, 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 really important. Representation matters.
Yeah, and I have to say, when I watched that video the first time, as I was watching it, I was kind of waiting for the one-liner at the end, thinking I know her, and I was a little surprised when I didn't hear anything and felt a little left wanting. And Shayna, you and I were actually going back and forth about this after, and I think you put me in my place a little bit. And I think more importantly, the way events unfolded on Twitter put me in my place a little bit because, like we said, it was everything everyone else said about the video that made the point better than she ever could. And her clapbacks, the one she makes, she comes up with them off the top of her head. I don't think that it would have hit the same way in a prepared video, and I think she knew that, and I think she knows herself better than we do, and I respect that. And I think more than that, I don't know, did you guys watch her campaign announcement speech, which came about an hour after this video?
I did not watch her live stream, no. I watched clips of it, but not the whole thing.
Okay. I watched it. It was good, but interestingly, for people who didn't watch it, she collaborated with a very funny emerging YouTube channel called Diaper Diplomacy. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's very funny, to put out an interesting AI-generated clip putting her speech in a new light. I'm going to show this to you guys here.
Okay.
Trump's toughest choice was between Chantilly lace or alabaster for his billionaire ballroom. The American people have been watching, and even those who weren't watching, they felt the effects and know the pain. Trump's unpopular policies will cost him the Republican majority in the Congress. He knows that, and that's why he called Greg Abbott and said, I need 5 seats from Texas. I'm entitled to them. And Abbott got right to it. Well, Trump, I know you're watching, so let me tell you directly, you're not entitled to a damn thing in Texas. You better get to work because I'm coming for you. He knew he would lose, so Trump did what he always does, resort to lying, cheating, and stealing. He has rigged our elections once again by changing the lines in the middle of an election cycle. And the cherry on the top, Trump drew me out of my home district. I know he's tired of me holding him accountable, dismantling his lies, and I know he's tired of me breaking through to millions of Americans, tired of me getting people out to vote, tired of me living in his head rent-free. Well, Mr. President, you couldn't beat me at the ballot box. And so, as y'all know, a judge that you appointed, Mr. President, he said your maps were unconstitutional, but you ran it up to your loyal activist cronies at the Supreme Court and snatched representation away from almost 500,000 people I represented right here in CD 30. Well, I'm here to tell you, Donald Trump, you won't get rid of me that easily. I'm not going away. I'm not giving up. I still believe in this country. I still believe that we are in the land of opportunity. I still believe in the bright beacon of hope amidst a sea of despair. I still believe Texas will lead the way and prove to this nation and the world what I know to be true. So I'm asking you, will you join me in this campaign?
I'm not the biggest fan of AI babies.
Fair enough.
I understand its purpose. I understand that strategically, yeah, probably good to have that collaboration, but I just have like a weird discomfort with AI babies. I didn't like that, and for that reason.
I think, like, I get its purpose. I think it would have been funnier if Jasmine was the only adult in the room, and then everyone else were babies. Like that would have hit really hard. I know we all three of us have vastly different opinions on AI, but I think no matter what your opinions are on AI at the moment, it's coming, it's here. People are gonna have to start to integrate it into their lives, one way or another. It's not going away, but it sends a big message that, as much as I love some politicians, it's just a bunch of babies fighting with each other. That's what politics is, unfortunately, at this point.
Also, to be clear, Jasmine Crockett did not make that video. I'm pretty sure this AI fan page, which I think she reposted it. Yeah, she put it on her Instagram. I wouldn't be shocked if she saw it and cracked up for a solid 5 minutes before reposting it herself, to be honest.
Yeah.
Knowing who she is and how she operates, which leads to another fascinating story I saw on, I forget which news site, but I'll put it up, that apparently the NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, who is in charge of recruiting Republicans and coordinating their Senate campaigns, actually baited Jasmine Crockett to running, were like trying to get her to run, begging her to do
saw
it.
that. I saw that story. It was so interesting. They spent a lot of money and months phone banking voters, telling them to call Jasmine Crockett's government office to tell her to run for Senate. So
That's
thank you,
insane.
NRSC.
Right? Like, even if whatever happens in this primary, I'm assuming their racist asses think that putting a black woman in the Democratic nomination will automatically lead to a win for them.
Also, they clearly are not thinking about the fact that that's double the amount of staffers, progressive staffers that have employment, double the amount of doors that are being knocked for democratic values. Like,
Not to mention more Crockett clapbacks.
exactly. Like, everyone online and a lot of these pundits want to use that as a reason why she should have never announced she was tricked. I mean, I don't think that's the only thing they took into consideration when she announced. I'm sure
No.
they had some internal polls going and whatever that you need to do before launching. But also, like, in a primary, especially when it's a primary where it's not like just taking the top two. Like, we don't want to talk about California's governor race, but when in a primary that it's like you're all running against a bunch of Democrats, let's throw in more money, let's do this, especially in Texas of all places. I personally can't help but feel like that's a good thing. I don't know. It's more money, more talking, and more visibility, and more leaders to specifically highlight. Like, if it's like all of this drama surrounding this race, then there's going to be more headlines, more media coverage, which means that is more Democrats in the headlines, which we are desperately lacking, and we have been for several years. So
Something I also want to bring up too, which I know that we've spoken about before, is that no one really knew who Barack Obama was until he ran for president. He was in the state Senate in Illinois, and then he was a federal senator in Illinois, and then became president. Some of the people who may emerge in being our Democratic stars, it's either just starting now or we don't know who they are. And that comes from people running in primaries. That's why it's just so important that Jasmine Crockett did decide to come in, which I know we'd be repeating everything that we just talked about if I went further into it. I just wanted to stick that in there because it's something that we keep mentioning. And please, we need more people to run for office. We have better people to get these old farts out of there.
Yes, and we need to do all of the above, everything, everywhere, all at once. And we need to A/B test our candidates, essentially. We need to try everything. That's what these primaries are for. That's what these midterms are for before 2028, when we need to really buck up and make sure that we can define the post-Trump future of this country. And we need to stop standing back and fighting about how we do the thing, and we just need to do the thing. We just need to get up, get off the mats, start fighting back. And especially now when, Republicans are about to let Americans' healthcare prices skyrocket without even the concepts of a plan that their president promised us. I can't think of a time when a political party has ever been weaker. The only problem is the second weakest time is the Democrats right now. And that needs to change. That needs to change now. And we are on the ground doing that. And we are hearing from our supporters how much there is a desire to fight back. The energy around No King's Day has shown that the energy is there and the people are just looking for somebody to lead them. And we are going to gather up your voices and give our platform to the people who deserve it and the people you guys want to hear from. I know you guys want another No King's Day. It's coming. I've heard possibly March for the next No King's Day, but more to come there. And in the meantime, thank you all for all of your help getting us to where we are, and we need you to stick with us in the fight to continue the momentum.
Yeah, and we hope that if you feel like you don't have a voice, that somewhere in all of the things that we've done or that you're seeing online, that it inspires you to speak up. And we hope that we're able to help give you some of that inspiration and power to feel like you can speak up.
exactly. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Happy holidays. And we have a lot planned for 2026. Concepts of a Pod is only the beginning of our Concepts of a Plan to fix all of this. And ours is coming a lot better than the Republicans. So more to come here. And it's all thanks to you. So we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks, y'all.